one more open mic reader before our feature tonight, Daniel Sketch Mills, who's here. Hello, good to see you again. And so I'm going to invite up Ken Price. Ken, come on up.
Good evening. I have a couple of poems. It's two. Rain was falling on the city. Rain was falling on the city. Darkness gathered on the streets. I had a place to lay my head, but had nowhere to sleep. I'd often needed love before and kept desire inside. This time it glowed at every pore. I knew no way to hide. If you're wondering which way is up, you're probably going down. If you ever lost yourself, what was it that you found? If you're wondering which way is up, you're probably going down. If you ever lost yourself, what was it that you found? Outside of the supermarket, I leaned against the wall. She reminded me of someone who I could not recall. I said, I don't know what to say. She said, none of us do. But a face can tell a story, and your eyes tell me it's true. When your mind is full of static, just try to hear the sound. Though you may never straighten up, you just might come around. She said everything's allowed. Here's a place you can park for free. You can plant where you haven't plowed. There is no way it's supposed to be. If you're wondering which way is up, probably going down. If you ever lost yourself, what was it that you found? When your mind is full of static, just try to hear the sound. Or you may never straighten up, you just might come around. Yes. I picked up a hitchhiker on Christmas Day. He had no special direction, but he always found his way. of his gear got ripped off from where he made his camp. And so he knew the time had come to walk back up that on-ramp. And it takes all kinds. It takes all kinds. It takes all kinds to make the world go round. There's a kid lived down at the corner of 12th Street in Pine. His brain didn't work like yours and mine. He had an IQ of 49. The other kids called him stupid, but he took it all in stride. And when he looked at you, his eyes would shine like God was on his side. It takes all kinds. It takes all kinds. It takes all kinds to make the world go round. A motorcycle policeman stopped me on my way up north. He said he wanted to wish me a happy July 4th. Punched out all my numbers on his computer machine, and he said I could be on my way because I came out squeaky clean. And it takes all kinds. 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 One day I met a Buddhist monk. Climbing it in a tree. I asked how high he had to climb before he could get free. He said, if you'll forget you ever asked me that, I'll forget that you forgot and turned into a cat. It takes all kinds. It takes all kinds. It takes all kinds to make the world go round.
Ken used to come and read to us at our old location, and we didn't see him for quite some time. And I really am. I've told him this already, but I want you to know I'm just really happy to see him back again. Always enjoy hearing your stuff. Here we go. Our featured reader tonight is the docent at the Lancy Chinese Garden. I was privileged to be invited by him to do a reading there last fall, and it was really one of the best afternoons I've ever had as a poet. Such a beautiful room, and whether you've been to the garden before or not, I really encourage you to go over there and see the different reading series that he helps to put together over there. Daniel Sketch Mills is an award-winning poet, author, and former Trappist monk. His poetry has been published in journals and anthologies ranging from Sufi Magazine and the Journal of Taoist Philosophy and Practice to the Christian Science Monitor and Sojourners. His books include The Tao of Now, which was one of the 150 outstanding Oregon poetry books for Oregon's 2009 sesquicentennial. The Hut Beneath the Pine, Tea Poems, a finalist for the 2012 Oregon Book Award, and In This Forest of Monks, a double finalist in both the poetry and spirituality categories of the 2013 Next Generation Indie Book Awards, and lauded as a powerful work that touches, delights, and amazes by the judge of the 21st Annual Writer's Digest Book Awards. Manzu, a Chinese farewell that literally means walk slowly, was published in January 2014. Daniel lives with his partner of 21 years in Portland, Oregon, and we are very pleased to have him here to share some of his work with us tonight. Daniel Skatchman.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Chris, Tony. Thanks to all of you, and I am so grateful for venues like this. Thank the Muse that things like this are going on when so many small venues are closing, that this is happening. It's just absolutely wonderful. So thank you for inviting me to be here tonight. Before I forget, in addition to the books I'll be reading from tonight, I brought two other books with me. One is a small chapbook entitled Because It's Love by Ken Arnold. Ken published my first book, The Tao of Now. He died recently of prostate cancer. I have never met anyone who has lost more so quickly than Ken. Living space, marriage, business, health, all just pulled out in a very short period of time. And this chapbook came out just before he died. Because It's Love. It's like a Zen Gasho, his last saying to the world. Also, a wonderful anthology just came out of Poems in Conversation with William Stafford for William's 100th birthday celebration. Check it out, a lot of wonderful poets in this as well. I heard a lot of Zen threads, Taoist threads, the enigma of now, Buddhist monks climbing trees. I think I'm in good company. I always have a hard time reading my poetry out loud, because to me my poetry seems much more like sit and have tea in a contemplative moment and read it quietly to yourself kind of poetry. So it's kind of a challenge for me to get up and read it out loud. I'm going to read a poem, start out with a poem that is not in any of the books because people were reading new works. This is called Attention. I tend small things, wishes the size of wren tits, insights realized and reeled in, like dawn's nectar-glinting instant, caught on the tip of the hummingbird's fishing line tongue. Chickadees, those crown-capped charmers, plucking me free from the husk of myself like seed. I live as the world now, which means attention is love, or poetry, same thing. Sad to think it's the poem we're so afraid of, how the wild thrush of it, darting in and out of the corded leaves of our hearts, can ruffle and reduce us to tears. The little verse too swift for words to name, flying straight through all our carefully preened pretension, our prose-prone tongues frequently flightless, flat. So what did you expect to flush from stanzas like these anyway? A bevy of taut lines to perch your hopes on? A wingspan of words taking you only where your flight plans wanted to go? When a poem opens its mouth, shouldn't the whole sky come out? Our listening become birds? I'm going to read one poem from each of the first three books, and then I'll focus more toward the end on Monzo. The Tao of Now, collection of 81 poems focusing on the way of now. Tao in Chinese, of course, means way or path. So the way of the present moment, and how a culture may or may not look like it's living in the present moment. These are all titled numerically, so there are 81 poems. And I'm going to read poem number 59. There is a phenomenon in Taoism called synesthesia. It's a momentary exchange or fusion of the senses. And it's often precipitated by reading poetry, especially Taoist poetry. If you've ever been to the Chinese garden, there's a courtyard there called the Listening to the Fragrance Courtyard, and that term is referred to in this poem. 59. What's changeless sees what changes. What's still sees what moves. Can you synthesize your senses into one sense? The way rain becomes a stream, and a stream becomes a river, and a river an ocean that takes everything in. Can you feel your own body's subtle energy so completely that this, rather than thinking, becomes the source of all your action, the ground of your identity? Tasting a sound, listening to a fragrance. Don't think about it, do it. Like sunlight soundlessly touching a shiny brass bell, every eye in the room that's struck by it rings. The Hut Beneath the Pine, collection of tea poems. I love tea. And if you've been to the garden, how many have been to the garden here, by the way? Chinese garden? Oh, wonderful. Great. It is down on Northwest 3rd and Everett in Portland, 239 Northwest Everett. It has a wonderful tea house there. And this book has some wonderful illustrations, ink brush illustrations by an artist, Lou Kesey. Did a lot of wonderful little illustrations for the book. I am going to read, again, some of these are titled numerically, number 4. The person awakened to the Tao is like a good pot of tea. Strong but not biting, smooth but not weak. She brings people together, permeates the entire room with fragrance without even trying, embodies the one source that fills an infinite variety of cups. This is why people relax in her presence, because she brings what's been gathered on the heights down to where people can taste it, pours herself freely into emptiness, which is why those around her experience being filled. Ask, and she'll tell you her job is easy. She simply lets whatever comes brew into what it is. And if there's a mind out there saying, but that's very passive and indifferent, check with me after the reading. It's really not. Forest of Monks. This is probably the book that is dearest to my heart. I was a Trappist monk for 6 years, and this is about my experience in a Trappist monastery, also my expulsion from the monastery. I've always thought it significant that I was expelled from Our Lady of Guadalupe Abbey on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, Mexican Independence Day. I'm going to read one poem from this book. There is a reference, cowl. Cowl is the white monastic robe that the Trappist monks wear. And a nave is the long central hall in a church. This is entitled The Monk Who Bakes Bread, Brother Mark. I really don't know if this is saying anything about Mark at all. It's probably saying more about me observing Mark and where I was at. The monk who bakes bread no longer believes in the measure for measure God of the recipe books, has little faith, if any, in the predestined endings ordained by timers, the finely sifted claims to inerrancy held by cups and spoons. Blended to life, call his 11 devotion to resurrection, appearing from within each cracked tomb of grain, the hunger that presses his hands dawn after dawn deep into the just risen flesh. Cowl white as the flour he scoops, mixes, forms pat into loaves shaped like naves. It is his chest, filled with the invisible yeast of breath, that knows by heart the patient kneading together of days, how long love takes to rise. Manzhou, a Chinese farewell, literally means walk slowly, but it's also used as a farewell that means slow down, linger longer, don't hurry off in such a rush. The book has just been beautifully adorned with a number of translations into Chinese of the English poems and done with Chinese paintings by Dr. Jiu Yang, who does a lot of work down at the Chinese Garden in Portland. And so this is really a collaborative effort. The book was inspired not only by Manzhou, the title, but by a quote by Rollo May, who wrote, and this is one of the book's epigraphs, "It is an old and ironic habit of human beings to run faster when we have lost our way." And I juxtapose that with another quote, "Why settle for super fast when you can have blazing fast?" It was a wireless internet ad. Gives you an idea of where I am, and I don't have to say anything. The first poem is entitled Snail. If you're going to deal with poems that are about slowing down, that seemed appropriate. Slow, or snail. Slow, your pace is this poem finding its way, antennae reaching, always reaching, the scripted shell of every word concealing as much as it reveals. Small, you inch your cursive crawl line by wandering line across the tightly ruled page of our vision. Leave in your foot's filigreed wake a trail for others to follow, a shine. Most of these are tinged with a Chinese Taoist flavor. Some are short, some are longer. This is called Sinking Down. This was written at the Tower of Cosmic Reflections Tea House at the Chinese Garden. The fish's grace relaxes tension. The waterfall's song goes well with tea. Koi in the lake sinks slowly to the bottom. Leaves in my cup float briefly on the top. What starts out on the surface here always returns to what's deeper. We had 13 beautiful koi that sadly were all lost at the garden this winter when the cold came on very quickly. A lot of the poems in here refer to the koi, so this is also kind of a legacy for the fish, actually. In this poem, the word meres, M-E-R-E-S, refers to a small pond or lake. I found a lot of times that it was more interesting to watch people watch the koi and just the effect that it had on people, and that's what this poem is about. Watching people watch koi. What hooks me, catches my pen's undulating cursive without barb or fail, is how quickly the onlookers relax. The body's taut lines slackening as thoughts sink down, as koi swimming up through the twin tributaries of the legs, the care-damned backwater of the face, spawn in the media-muddied mirrors of their eyes, this pool of clear seeing, where, like a fish, the effortless glide of who they are rises silently for a moment to the surface. Do any of you do Tai Chi? Oh, very good. Okay. This poem is entitled, During Tai Chi Class, I Recall the Film A River Runs Through It. There are two epigraphs. A Confucian, follower of Confucius, sits on the bank and studies the river. A Taoist jumps in and splashes around. Gives you an idea of the difference between the two worldviews. Wei refers to Tao in this poem. During Tai Chi class, I recall the film A River Runs Through It. To move, as the movie's titled, is why we are here. Thirsty to wend again as creek, rivulet, brook. As life stream rather than mind stream. effluent without effort, and our constant flood of thoughts, the endless eddying around those early submerged stones. Sit up straight, get in line, try harder, all blocking the deeper undercurrent we know is us. Bloodstream, spinal fluid, urinary flow, wading the way back into where we're dammed, until our wrists become rills, the torso trickle, arms arroyos, until our flesh resurfaces as what it's always been, body of water, bubbling up from beneath all our heavy layers of mind into current, cascade, a river's love of letting. Read about 3 more. Where the Master stands. Pace yourself to the rhythms of the Tao, and you will see the truth. Birth is you, life is you, death is you. See the truth, and you will perceive the oneness. Sound is silence that's become audible. Activity is stillness that's taken on movement. Form is formlessness arising out of and returning to itself. Perceive the oneness, and what is there to fear? The Master sees the world as himself. Seeing the world as himself, what could he possibly want that's not what he already is? People don't understand him. He is like a tree rooted in a depth of knowing others cannot see. He has stepped out from under all the voices that would have kept him from standing in his own shade. There's a building in the Chinese garden, the four-sided hall. It's called that because all 4 walls are clear see-through windows. High chat refers to philosophical wit or banter that originated with Chan Buddhist monks around 300 CE based on the writings of Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi, and later became very popular with the Chinese literati. And I Ching is I Ching clay. It's purple sand clay. Have you ever seen those little clay Chinese teapots? I always thought they were decorative, but they're really to be used. And so I Ching is referred to in this poem. Gazing at 10,000 ravines in thick clouds, which is the mountain area at the garden, through a window in the four-sided hall. My window frames ancient mountains, cloudy crags and jagged scarps towering above deep ravines. Such heights. At my age, I've abandoned dreams of reaching them, my days inclined now to nothing steeper than high chat, this vertical drop of oolong cascading from my I Ching pot. Truly, just living with a view of peaks like this can change a person's heart forever. What need then to go searching for my walking stick, my battered trekking shoes? Only people lost in the fog of separation see things as close or far. I'm going to close with a poem that refers to this Chinese character. Some of you may know this as the Chinese character for tea. It's actually made up of 3 ideograms. So the top ideogram along the top is the ideogram for grass. It looks like grass poking up out of the ground. The center ideogram that looks like an upside down V is the ideogram for Ren, and that means person. And the bottom character is the character for trees. Well, you'll notice in the Eastern mind, where is humanity? It's not over here looking at the trees and grass. It's right in the center. It's one with the natural world. And that's what a regular tea practice is meant to foster, this realization that we are not separate from anything. So this final poem refers to this character and also to Ren. And also, there's an excerpt referred to from the Tao Te Ching, chapter 11, where it reads, "We shape clay into a bowl, but it is the bowl's emptiness that makes it useful." This is entitled Cha Dao Ren. So Cha is tea, Dao is way, Ren is person, way of tea person. And the reference to Chan Buddhism, was the syncretism or blend of Mahayana Buddhism and Taoism that eventually went to Japan and became Zen. So the epigraph reads, Descartes, the French philosopher, 17th century. Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." A Chan student says, "I am, therefore I think." The master hears the word "I" used twice in the same sentence and laughs out loud. Cha Dao Ren. Our thinking mind won't save us. Didn't Einstein try to tell us this? You won't find solutions using the same tool that created the problems, or something like that. Words not being that important either when it comes to what's real. Our name, phylum, class, category, for the red-crested, we really don't know what it is perched on the fence. Is just one more takeoff from what's right in front of us. Another flight from mystery the universe doesn't believe in. I think, therefore I am. Now there's a death sentence. Poor Descartes, he didn't look deeply enough, didn't have enough tea in him, as the Chinese are wont to say, mistaking as he did the tiny bowl of his head filled to the brim for the empty pot that holds it all. The void within that Lao Tzu said makes the vessel useful. You have to see it the way the old Taoist sages did. Humanity not separate from anything. The Chinese character for the word tea steeping us, Ren, the ideogram for person, right here between the terra-rooted radicals for trees and grass. Ren, the character that resembles an upside-down V, two sticks like a pitched tent, supported by the earth, propping each other up. Two leaning as one into this world. That's all I'm trying to say here. Where everything is us. Where everything depends.
Thanks again to Daniel Sketch-Mills. Let's come in with a hand, please. It was great to see that so many people have already been to the Chinese Garden, but if you haven't been there, I encourage you to go, and I encourage all of you to support the great poetry series over there, and I'm sure that Daniel can tell you more about that if you want to know about what might be coming up over there. What occurs just being there for a little while is something that's really hard to put into words, but it makes you want to spend a lot of time there. So I don't even really need to know the story of how you ended up being a docent there. It seemed like if you had an opportunity to be there every day, why wouldn't you be in that beautiful environment? Right? So he has several books for sale, and there's also coffee and plenty of people to say hello to. So we'll see you in about 15 minutes for some more open mic poetry. Thanks for being with us.